have been reading Civil Discourse by Joe Schmidt and Nichelle Pinkney, and it is great. And they reference some resources that I would love to share with you. So let's get into one here. This resource comes from Stem4ELs, and it talks about the student moves that help support complex thinking. So I always talk about how social studies skills are really thinking skills, right? I think that's true for a lot of different areas and different content areas. But here is just a graphic that I want to share. Of course, there's a lot more here. You could look at the full resources page. There's some examples of science and math moves. But I just want to kind of focus on this for right now. So when we think about students working with ideas, I like to think of this almost as like a option menu for students when you have that lull in conversation or that self-reflection point in a discussion where you're like, oh, I need to do something. I need to jump in here, or we need to elevate or move along the conversation. Here are some things that students can do. So you can turn these into like cards, or I'm even envisioning like a placemat or an anchor chart or something where there's a pause and you kind of cue students to look at these options and self-reflect. So one is you can tell and explain, right? I feel like this is a pretty basic one. Clarify someone else's idea. So if something is confusing, get students to ask their own questions as opposed to you, the adults, having to step in and say, hey, can you clarify here, right? Or ask the follow-up question. Here is a really good one for those quiet listeners who are not speaking a lot in terms of sharing their own thoughts, but are really taking a lot in. I think restate or summarize is a beautiful way to leverage their listening skills, because that is a true skill and we often undervalue it. Compare ideas. So I love this cognitive routine of kind of a Venn diagram in people's brains, or even in note form as they're listening. Okay, so I hear some people, right? Some people are saying this thing and others of us believe this thing. So it's interesting that these are contrasted, or a comparison externally to the discussion. So we're talking about this, and that reminds me of this other time we talked about this other event, or, in science class, we talked about this, and now we're here in math class and we're talking about this, right? Comparing, supporting an idea. Evidence is always a very large part of ELA and social studies, as well as math and science, and thinking about supporting an idea could be great. I think this one is one that is often underused by a lot of students at all grade levels, building on an idea. So yes, I'm not just going to restate what you just said to show I was listening, but I'm actually going to build on it, right? I'm not just going to go take the conversation in a different direction. I'm going to link somehow to yours. Ideally, I'm going to truly build on. I'm going to deepen the idea, but I might also say, you know what, I like this, and here's another way to think about this, right? There's a ton of sentence starters out there for any of these frames. And then question or challenge. So again, we want to elevate the discourse. Pose a question. It doesn't just have to be the teacher that does this. Teacher can do this initially to model and practice students engaging in responding to questions in a class discussion, but ultimately we would love to turn this over to students. In part, that means students need to actually generate their question, but they could also challenge something that comes up where they're challenging the veracity of something, right? Like, where's your evidence on that claim? We need to investigate that further. But it could also be like, here is something I want us all to dig into in terms of a comment that someone made. So I love this. Feel free to take a look at all of the pieces of this. A lot of ways to use a simple chart like this. Again, make it accessible to your students, and maybe just start modeling as an adult, or calling out when you see it happen, when students naturally do something like this, and maybe make your own organic anchor chart where you have this as kind of a resource that is like the ultimate thing you want to get to. But really, as you go through, you are noting on your own kind of co-constructed anchor chart for your class, this is the move that one could make in a class discussion, and this is an example of a quote where we had a student do it, right? Or that student's name or something. I think that'd be super cool. Let us know how you're using it, and let us know if you have any questions.